All right. Oh boy. No one wants me to. All right, here we go. Hey everybody, this is Kurt Francom with Leading Saints, and I get to hang out with my brother from another mother, my cruise buddy. That's Troy Dunn. What's up, Troy?
You say that about all your brothers from other mothers.
No, not the only you, my friend.
Yeah, okay.
But you are definitely my top of my list on my cruise buddies because we end up cruising a lot together. So
We do.
Yeah, it's fun.
I not to try to make it too much Leading Saints right off the top, but can I just say that I hope to lead the Saints as being the very first person, or at least the first couple, called to serve a full-time mission on a cruise ship.
Ooh.
I'm just putting it out there, right?
All right. We're and by the way, we're going to get into this. We're going to talk about some experiences. We're going to talk about a really cool thing happening in April as we're partnering with BYU Cruise. And so if you're just from the top, that's what we're going to get into. But me and Troy like to have fun. Now, here's a little factoid. I don't know if we've ever talked about this, but back in the David O. McKay times, it was proposed to David O. McKay to create a cruise ship temple. Are you aware of this?
No. Is this true?
This is true.
When you say factoid, I don't know where to go.
No, it is true. I can look it up. I learned this from the book David O. McKay and the Rise of Modern Mormonism. And basically, they actually went as far as to like scout out a few like retired cruise ships that they could then purchase and then create a temple ship out of this, and then it would port around the world, and people could do temple work around.
Okay, come on. It's time to revisit that. If ever there was a prophet that would be into that, I think it's right now.
That's right. Troy is putting his application for the first temple president of the cruise ship temple.
I'm happy to be the temple laundry guy. I don't care. That sounds amazing.
Wouldn't that be cool? Yeah.
I mean, really, when you think about it, the scriptures are filled with lots of stories of cruises, right? There's a lot of people who spend a lot of time on ships and boats. So I think it's kind of in our DNA. That's probably going to happen.
I love it. I love it. So with that, as people log on here, I'd love to hear, we're watching the comments here. You can share where you're tuning in from. If you've ever been cruising, that would be fun. But we're going to get into, we'll try and cover it all tonight. I'm happy to hang out, and I'll make Troy hang out as long as well. But
it's awesome. I just feel like I have a front row seat to the coolest podcast in America. So
go on.
I'll just, I know it's, I read it as you wrote it.
But
no, I'm excited. I mean, I've been a long time listener, and I love, obviously we've got some backstories together and in our travels together, but even just as a listener, it's pretty cool to be sitting here next to you virtually.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll get in. We're happy to talk about whatever people want to do, just Q&As with leadership in general, some past episodes. Troy has an in-depth leadership experience that you may not realize. And so we're going to scour his archives in his mind about some perspective as well. But we already got some people tuning in here. Here's Kurt, mission president of the seas. Okay. Hey, I'm willing to talk about it. Okay. And then Devin, keep up the good work. You are amazing. I think he's talking to Troy. So
no, definitely you.
So let's give a little bit about our backstory, and then we'll talk about which leads into this. I don't know what to call it, but this experience that we're putting together with BYU Cruise and Leading Saints. But a few years ago, I got reached out to through an organization that you were working with at the time about being a speaker on an LDS cruise. And I'm like, that's a thing. So we've done 3 cruises together, but what do you remember about that?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like you're selling yourself a little bit short. So here, I will confess, because it was a few years ago when we first did this one together. I wasn't at that point. Keep in mind now, I moved to Utah from Florida. So I wasn't hip to all the cool LDS celebrity podcasters. So I hadn't quite entered the realm of Kurt Francom.
Yes.
But I was in a meeting where we were planning this big LDS charter. Charter means you rent the entire cruise ship. And so we were planning this big, it was going to be the biggest LDS cruise in the history of LDS cruising. And we were booking celebrities left and right? We had David Osmond, and we had Hillary Weeks, and all of our favorites.
The piano guys were on that.
Piano guys, like all the big names. And then in that meeting, same people, same breath, somebody said, you know, it'd be cool. What if we brought Kurt Francom? And I hate to feel like the dumb guy in the room. So I, rather than chiming right in, I'm listening to everybody. And I started quietly typing in Kurt Francom. I'm like, so I see who you were. And I was like, isn't he a podcaster? And they were like, oh yeah, he's that and more. I said, okay, well, what are we going to do with the podcast on a cruise? And they said, he'll just do his thing. He'll podcast. He'll do interviews. Like, okay, well, just keep in mind now we've got, you know, award-winning singers and performers, and I don't understand.
Nice.
And then we booked you because everybody in the room thought I was an idiot, and clearly, in hindsight, they were accurate. And then we got on the cruise, and we put you on the schedule, of course, and we selected a spot for you. And people started pouring into it. I'm carrying a walkie-talkie, one of the things you have to do if you're the cruise guy. And it's the cruise ship. And they're like, we can't have this many people in this room. It's a fire code violation. Engineers are freaking out. I'm like, wait, what are you talking about? Downstairs. I'm like, I'm in the theater. There's nothing going on right now. Outside anyway, I walk out there. There's Kurt Francom, the microphone. I don't remember who you interviewed first.
Well, yeah, I think it was it was all sorts of people. I was grabbing just some of our performers.
You did all of them.
Speakers.
Yeah, you did all the LDS celebrities. And people were packing in. They were dragging furniture from places they weren't supposed to drag it from. There was some over the back. I mean, it was crazy. If Elvis did a podcast, it would be you, Kurt Francom.
There it is.
So anyway, and I know that sounds like a big schmooze, but the truth is, it was the most surprising thing, even above Ophi and that crazy experience with finding Ophi and discovering him. I never seen anybody do that before. Like you're like the Joe Rogan of the Latter-day Saints. And I mean that with love. And so from that point forward, every time we've done anything in the LDS market, we do come, and I don't want to say we beg because that sounds sad and desperate, but we aggressively invite you to participate.
Yeah. Well, and from my side of things, I remember just discovering like, wow, like this is an experience, right? It's not just, that was really my first cruise. And I always thought people go on cruises just to overeat and maybe sitting on a beach every once in a while. But like, this was like creating a small city on the sea and interacting with people like me, you know? So yeah, it was awesome. It was awesome.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of people even people who tell me they've been on cruises, if they've not been on a charter, it's very different. Yeah. It's just very different, right? It's like, if you ask somebody, have you ever toured the conference center? Some have, many haven't, but some have. And if they try to compare touring the conference center with sitting in the front row on general conference weekend, they're very different.
Yeah.
It's so much more significant on conference weekend. Being on a cruise ship with 2,000 strangers doing what strangers do is not the same as being on a ship filled with your like-minded community. It's very different. And I'm being sensitive to everyone. So, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's
and we've done a few cruises where we weren't the entire ship. We were maybe a half of it or a quarter of it, a portion of it, and which is fine. You know, you find your people and you eat with them, and it was a good time. But there's something about a full charter, and this leads into sort of this event coming up in April, when you get on the elevators in the cruise and you immediately have a connection. You know, these people are LDS. You know, in the case of this BYU cruise, you know, they're BYU fans. Like, you can immediately ask, oh, where are you from? Oh, I know so-and-so. Oh, he was in my ward. Where'd you go on a mission? You know, like, it's just immediately you have these friends. You feel like this huge family on the ship. And so that's why I'm excited to be a part of this and create some Leading Saints experiences on the ship as well. So maybe lead us into what the BYU Cruise is, and I'll put some images on the screen as you do.
Oh, wow. All right, Mr. Professional. So it is a celebration of all that is BYU athletics, football, basketball, and all the sports. They are bringing in some of the various athlete legends from the past. You can see there as you're scrolling. I mean, look, stop right there for just a second. I mean, there's Kalani Satake. I think on my screen, he looks like you've cut him off, but he's up there. At the top.
Here he is. Yep.
And I mean, that's the head coach of the team that's currently 10-1 and headed to a bowl game. And he'll be there with his family joining us on the cruise. There's the athletic director, Tom Homo. There's Jennifer Rockwood, one of the great female coaches of BYU, and there's Jimmifer Burdett from the basketball. There's Jim McMahon, right? Jim McMahon is one of the great NFL legends who came out of BYU, and of course Chad Lewis, one of the great Cougar vets. And you just go through that list; it's one after another. There's Robbie Bosco, right, from the '84 national champions, and of course Gifford Nielsen. I mean, all of these guys, every single one of them is a legend. There's Spencer and Jerem from Sports Nation, who'll be broadcasting their sports show live. There's Greg Wrubell, the official voice of the Cougars that you hear everywhere on the radio. And there's the actual Cougarettes, national champion Cougarettes, who are actually bypassing nationals this year to come and perform on the BYU Cruise. They've got their own special show that's going to be unbelievable, and a couple of surprises I'm not permitted to speak about. Cosmo will be there. I believe he's trying to set a world record, but again, I don't know what I'm allowed to say, but just know Cosmo's there.
And let me interject here with the sports legends here. So, for example, Chad Lewis, former guest of the Leading Saints podcast, but this is before his time. He's currently serving as a stake president.
President Lewis, yep.
We got Gifford Nielsen. Everybody knows, we've seen him speak at conference a few times. So General Authority 70, leadership experience. Brandon Doman, I think he's still an active serving stake president. And so one thing, and not to mention that I will be cornering Kalani Sitake and making sure the interview happens there. And all these others, I'm going to be, working the room and say, hey, Chad, let's go sit down. Like, what's your schedule look like? Let's go find a time and talk about some leadership stuff or do a quick interview to follow up on our first interview, right? So all these individuals, not only are they BYU legends, but potential podcast guests that I hope to grab while on board.
You're being modest, which is fine, but you don't have to corner anybody. Everybody knows you're coming. Everybody's excited about being interviewed. There'll probably be people slightly hurt if they don't get interviewed, but for sure you'll probably get 2 months worth of Leading Saints episodes out of this single cruise, because there's a lot of amazing people, and you haven't even scrolled past the athletes. Like the entertainers are even down below that, right? So we've been lucky enough to get Hillary Weeks to show up again. She, of course, is an award-winning artist, and she'll be our Sunday morning kind of kickoff. There's Steve Solberg. Steve Solberg currently is the most watched comedy special on Hulu in the history of Hulu. He's a big BYU fan, LDS member. He is coming just out of his love of BYU to come and do an entire night of comedy for us, something that would have been way outside of our budget. But he's doing it for the love of the Cougars. Savannah Stevenson, for those who don't recognize her name or her face, she is the star of West End, the UK version of Broadway from Wicked. Might have heard that little show.
Yep.
She'll be joining David Osmond. They're doing a Broadway night. So if you're into Broadway, you name a Broadway show and the hit song from that show that you love, and they'll be there performing it live. Patrick and the LV Band, one of the greatest cover rock bands we've ever had perform around Utah and BYU, and they're coming up from Vegas. Truman Brothers are our Sunday evening, because we're at sea all Sunday. Emily Nelson, amazing fitness guru that she is. She'll be there actually teaching fitness classes up on the deck of the ship for the entire community. Dan Wilson, I know you know Dan because he cruised with us. Dan, I would say, is probably best known, or people may not know he's the name behind it, but you would recognize his artwork. He does the most beautiful paintings of the Savior that hang in many, many temples around the world.
And really cool. I mean, that would, you think like a cruise, like why have a painter on there? Like what's the deal there? But just, it was so cool to see him like painting live there, as you can just sit and watch and chat a little bit. It was great.
It's hard to be honest with you. It's hard to walk away because there's other things going on the ship that you don't want to miss. But Dan puts on a headset mic, stands in front of his canvas. Actually, I think we even had a 3-string kind of whatever you call that. Not a quartet. What is it when it's 3? Trio. Performing quietly little music while he painted a new, fresh, original painting of the Savior. And he told the most unbelievable stories behind the scenes of some of the most beautiful art that you and I would recognize, and the motivation behind it, and who his models were for the Savior, and some of the personal experience. I mean, it's really amazing. So he's by himself. He's a treat. And there it says more to be announced. There's already tons that we haven't even had time to put up on the website. Tom Holdman from Holdman Studios will be there. His family are the ones that own Holdman Studios, who does the stained glass for most of the temples around the world. He'll be there doing something very special that he hasn't announced yet, but I'll just say he's there.
Yeah.
Anyway, a lot of them.
Yep. And all the details that come with it, as far as because this is a Mexican cruise, right?
Mexican Riviera. Yep.
Yep.
We'll be stopping by Ensenada because that's where Holdman Studios are, and they've agreed for a limited folks and not limited number of people to go get a tour there. I'm sure the demand will be 10 times greater than the ability, but we'll try to make some people happy. And then it's down to where we're going to. We're going to Puerto Vallarta and
Cabo San Lucas.
Cabo San Lucas. Yeah, Cabo. That's
Ensenada.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
perfect. Cool.
I tell people it really doesn't matter where we're going, to be honest with you. If you're like, oh, I've been to Mexico 100 times, like this is not a Mexican Riviera cruise. This is a charter experience. And frankly, some people probably won't get off the ship.
Yeah.
We haven't mentioned what you're doing.
Yeah, for sure. So as I heard this was going on, of course, we're cruise buddies, so we always got to figure out a way to cruise together. And I said, hey, I want to be a part of this. I want to create a Leading Saints experience on the ship. And, we're not on the published agendas or things like that, but those in the Leading Saints audience who register through Leading Saints using our code, Leading Saints, one word, then you get at no extra cost. In fact, you get an addition of credit on board. You get an additional experience with Leading Saints, and we'll just work these in. You won't miss any of the fantastic entertainment or some of the all the other events are going on. But we'll find these moments to maybe grab a conference room, have some workshop, talk leadership. But to me, what I've noticed about these, and it's so hard to articulate it to get people excited to come until they experience it, but just the 1-2 hour conversations, casual conversations on the deck, maybe at night as we're enjoying some a nightcap of ice cream, and we're just getting into cultural dynamics you're seeing in the church, or, hey, this is what my ward's doing, or, hey, I listened to this episode and these 4 ideas came from that. And, what are you seeing? What are we working through? And just to kind of circle up and have that experience is awesome. And, last year I spoke at BYU Education Week. And so I hope to find some time to even repurpose some of that content I shared. I talked essentially 4 days, an hour each day. And so I hope to repurpose some of that content and really just, I want to sit down with people and, grab lunch together on the ship and have an experience. If you're a Leading Saints super fan or hope to be someday, then hopefully we'll be able to interact and get there. And again, it's BYU, and I get not every member of the church is a BYU fan, but there's just something about
and not every BYU fan is a member of the church.
Oh, really?
Fair, right? I know.
Right.
We have quite a few families booking who are coming because they love the sport, but they're not necessarily, everybody in the family isn't Latter-day Saints. So it's really a nice kind of blended, safe space, if you will. I feel like some people have ruined that term, but it is a nice place to come and just be with like-minded people, whether you're LDS, whether you're a BYU fan, or you happen to be somebody who's both. And I have to correct one thing that you said.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, you said you weren't on the daily agenda. I hate to break it to you, but you are.
Oh, he's outed me. All right, cool.
Well, we've outed part of you.
Okay.
Outed is also a phrase I think people have ruined. But, we have, your podcast sessions. They are such a draw that we'd be unfair to people to not let them know that you're going to be recording a session.
Love
so
it.
those are posted in the schedule.
Oh, perfect.
But we've also reserved those rooms that you requested for your private events for just your Leading Saints members, those who booked through you. So you will still have private events that the rest of the ship doesn't even know is going on. And then you'll have your people, the public will have access to you a little bit.
Yeah.
Just not to the degree that your people will, which,
okay.
makes sense to me, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, give me the big stage, Troy, when I do those interviews. Let's make it a big.
I know you need running room for the cartwheel. So
that's
for
right.
Sure, big stage.
and also excursions. I hope to get off the boat and do some fun excursions and things. And that would be something that individuals, definitely Leading Saints people get first dibs to join me in some of those things. So, and
yes, and we're modifying those as we speak. Just
really?
For people who've been on a cruise before, just so you can understand the depth at which this event is personalized, if you will, for our community. The chart. So when you go to Mexico, as you may or may not know, Kurt, that country loves tequila, and it's a pretty popular beverage. And so for many of their cruises, tequila is a part of the experience. And we told them that wasn't quite the popular drink with our community, that it might be with theirs. And so they have been going through excursion by excursion, rebuilding them with the vendors themselves and representing them. So now when you get booked on the cruise and you go to your app and you look through excursions, there's one that is now, it was a tequila and cheese tasting event of some sort. It is a chocolate and cheese tasting event.
Oh, wow.
For us.
That's our form of tequila, right? Is chocolate. We might be just as addicted. But.
It is. You are now outing me. So, yeah. So we've really personalized all the events so that even the excursions themselves are really personalized. And you hinted at it, so I don't know to what degree you want to go into detail, but there are some excursions that people can go on literally with you yourself. So,
those are fun.
The excursions are selling rapidly. I was in a meeting this morning with Royal Caribbean. I think there's now 11 or 12 of them that are already sold out entirely. We have 15 classes of cabin on the ship. 10 of them are sold out. We're down to that last 15 or 20% of the ship available. So I don't want to sound like a sales guy. I just don't want anybody to be emailing you and you calling me and going, I've got some very upset people because they can't get on the cruise. So for sure, anybody who's listening to you and I talk right now, if this sounds like your jam and you want to come and hang out with Kurt Francom and the rest of his BYU celebrity friends, I would do it quick.
And I think a lot of people are using it, especially with the holidays. I mean, what a great thing to wrap up and put under the tree, right? You know, it's the perfect, because this is in April, right?
It's in April 11th. Yep.
So
chose the date because it falls after General Conference and before Easter.
Perfect. And so surprise them on Christmas, and then you got a few months to prep and get everybody's bathing suit packed, and away we go. So, and this is the thing, other dynamic I want to explain is like individuals who love Leading Saints and the content. I mean, obviously you can listen. We literally hit episode 800 a few weeks ago. And so you literally could spend a lifetime listening and re-listening to so much quality content. But for personal development and leadership development, there's something about an in-person experience. When you're there, you're interacting, where you're workshopping, you're sharing ideas, you're articulating your perspective, that it really does transform you as a leader. And then to do it in a context of a fun trip with like-minded individuals, with Latter-day Saints, it is one to remember, and one that you'll see photos of this. You'll think, oh man, I can't believe I missed that. And hopefully, this will be an ongoing thing that people have other opportunities to be part of, but be part of the first one, So.
Yeah, I think, well, for sure. I mean, we've already gotten the green light to start working on the second one. But to be fair, because I had somebody the other day say to me, I don't know if I can make this first one, but man, you can count me in on the second one. I just like to tell people, because I don't want anybody, I'm always trying to avoid upsetting people. I've upset enough people in my life. The second one will only be opened up to the passengers of the first one. And whatever's left, if they don't take over the ship, then we'll make the last ones, that'll become available. So there is a benefit to jumping on the first one for sure.
Love it.
That was what I was going to tell you. I can't remember what it was going to be.
And again, I'll just plug in here and I put it in the comments. If people do want to register and see the details, go to BYUcruise.com. Use the code Leading Saints, one word, and that will make sure you're part of the Leading Saints cruise and the additional experiences there that we're going to put together, and it'll be awesome.
Yes. So we are only printing the private wristbands, if you will, for your community based off the list of people using the Leading Saints code. That's how we know internally. So even if people wander up to us on the ship and go, oh man, I love Kurt Francom, we'll tell them when your public experiences are, but if they want to be part of the private one, they got to come through here. So
perfect. Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. And feel free to, if there's any last questions before we wrap up here that you may have, put them in the comments. We'll respond to those. But I'm excited to do this, and let's sell this thing out before Christmas, and then Troy can just enjoy the holidays, right?
Yeah, it would be nice to not be working. It's going really fast, and obviously BYU's having an amazing football season, and now the basketball program is recruiting left and right. They just signed the world's greatest high school athlete ever.
Yeah.
So a lot is going on. And for those who are like, yeah, I like BYU sports, but I'm not in it as much of that. We do. I just read. I was going to bring it. That's what I forgot. I was going to screenshot something for you specifically. I might still send it to you after we're done.
Okay, here. We can put it in the comments or something.
Literally said, they were pretty kind about it, but she said, not a big sports watcher, but love Kurt Francom and Leading Saints. And so that's on her note, on her resume.
Wow, I can't imagine. I got to send that to my mother. So
I guess just to kind of reemphasize what you were saying earlier, there is, from a personal growth standpoint, there is something to be said for a little bit of isolation from the world, right? I mean, that's why I think your retreats are so amazing, because everybody gets to step out of it. I think, I spent a lot of years in the EFY program, and, there's just truckloads of letters that came back from those parents saying, I've never seen my son or daughter like this, even though they go to youth conference for a day or two, because there's something about that, that week-long immersion that allows you to just marinate in the kind of that greatness of that experience that can forever change you. And I think that as much as people love Leading Saints and your content and reading it and watching it and listening to it, to come and actually kind of immerse themselves in you and your private events alongside these legends from BYU. I know it's an overused phrase, but I do think it's a once in a lifetime experience.
Cool. Yeah, I think it'll be great. So do we cover all the details? Anything else we need to squeeze in here? Or
BYUcruise.com is the only way to get on it. You can't call Royal Caribbean. You can't call your favorite travel agent. There's nobody has access because it's a private charter. And the only way to get into the Leading Saints private events is to use the phrase Leading Saints when you make your reservation. That's your ticket into his events.
Love it. All right. We'll see you all in April, and it'll be one for the ages for sure. And hopefully one that we'll do over and over again and have not only a BYU experience, but a Leading Saints one. So thanks, Troy.
You bet, friend.